Mr. Otis Walker, thank you for coming, sir. First time we seen you was up at St. Stephen's, and we knew immediately we've got to get that guy on a podcast. I mean, he's phenomenal. And I apologize, I didn't know about you beforehand, but I'm very glad that we was there to learn about you.
Well, I'm happy to be here. I'm relatively new on the Huntsville scene, so I'm not relatively new in the world, but I am relatively new. We just started back out last September, so September will be our year anniversary that we started the Otis Walker Band.
Okay, sweet, man. So you're saying back here in September, so I'm assuming you're not a native of Huntsville.
I'm not. I was born in Memphis, and then I have dual citizenship. I tell everybody because my parents moved me to where they were born, this small little town called Saltillo, Tennessee. But my family was in Memphis. My heart was in Memphis, and the music was in Memphis.
Oh, of course.
So, that it became a hey, I got to come see my uncle. I got to go. I want to go do this. I want to do that because that's where it was happening. And
so, what age were you when you went from Memphis to the?
I probably at 2, 3.
Okay.
But when we moved, like I said, we were dirt poor, man, and so we the only place we could go afford to go spend time was at my aunt's house.
Right.
We went there a lot.
Okay. Yeah.
There was no Disneyland.
So your aunt being in Memphis.
Yes.
Okay. Gotcha.
And so we would go there depending on what when we got older as kids and we had more things. It expanded out, but as a kid, we were up there. My mom and my aunt are still close. They hang out every week, at least 3 or 4 times. They spend the night over at each other's house.
Oh man, that's awesome.
They are much happier than me and my sister, who we don't really hang out.
Well, that's what that was going to be my next question. Growing up, how many siblings did you have?
I have a 6-year-old. I have a sister who's 6 years older than me, and so we weren't very. She was just already so much older than me, and our interests were totally different. And,
I've got a sister like that too.
Yeah, so she was a hellion as a kid, and then a straight arrow teenager, and I was the perfect young child, and then became the hellion in high school, and so we just went totally different paths and different directions.
Yeah, it's weird how you would think siblings grew up in the same household, how different each. Well, I guess it's not surprising as far as characteristics, but I mean, like you said, Hellraiser on one, and then just totally straight on the other.
It just, and we swear we had different parents, maybe the life change happened with them and different things happened, but we feel like we were raised in 2 different households, even though, it was actually the same house. And,
So my older sister, she was the hellion.
Yeah.
And then my middle sister, she was the straight and narrow everything.
Yeah.
So it skipped a generation, or it skipped a child, and then it came to me, and I became the Hellraiser again. So that's how I grew up. So you said that you'd go to your aunt's, because of the music and everything. What age did you start getting? I mean, everybody's a fan of music, obviously, but when did you become like addicted to it? Like, hey, I got to do this, or this is something I want to do.
Dude, they have pictures. I called my mom last night to see if we could find it in my house. In my childhood home, there was always this picture of me about 18 months at a wedding where I climbed up on a piano and I was playing piano. I don't remember a time where I didn't love the piano and wanted to be in it. We started taking private lessons. My babysitter at the time, like I said, we were dirt poor. My babysitter let us borrow her piano because she knew how much I loved it and how much when I would be over at her house, I was banging on it. And so they brought it home, and I started having, professional lessons, but there has never been a time. There's pictures from 18 months till now that the piano is something that is like, it's my best friend. It has always been there.
It's like your third hand.
It is.
Got to have it with me.
They always kid, all my band members they're like, how many pianos do you own, or keyboards? I'm like, we're not talking about that, because it's been a lifelong collection, of things. And and I love him. You know, it is the way I express my way to everything. My mama could always tell what kind of day I had when I came home, because I immediately went right to the piano. And if I was having a shitty day, then, you know, I was playing something melancholy and awful. And if it was, you know, a good day, I was playing Great Balls of Fire, you know, or Floyd Kramer's Last Dance. You know, I was doing something happy. And so she never had to ask. She said she would, I'd come in and she'd have a snack for me, and I'd grab something and I'd go right to that piano until I had to go do homework. And that was always my friend.
Yeah. So I was going to ask you about your hobbies growing up, but it sounds like to me that the piano was your hobby. There was nothing, I mean,
my dad was a big sports guy. He had been all county, and he was he even went to the military, and he played basketball, you know, even, you know, with, you know, in his, you know, barracks, and his, you know, he loved basketball, and he tried his hardest. And I was not, that wasn't where my love was. I loved to watch it. I'd go to games with him, but, you know, I just didn't have his ability. And, but he couldn't hold a pitch to save his life, you know? And so, you know, we all were blessed with different things. Yeah. And so, music was just the thing that, you know, we had a record player at the house, and, I wore out a Chuck Berry Greatest Hits album. I mean, just forever I would play that album, and it was, you know, like a daily thing. You know, before I even went to kindergarten, I knew that when I had lunch, I was listening to Chuck Berry. You know? And so it became a part of my ever, you know, everything in me, you know, is wrapped around music.
Yeah. So you mentioned something about professional, you know, lessons and stuff, but it sounds like you're more self-taught than the professional lesson. Maybe the professional lessons maybe get you going a little bit, but probably everything else was self-taught.
I always had an ear. I could always pick out some things. They helped a little bit, but man, those first several years where they made me play music and get it down with, I wasn't happy. And then my musical mentor, my hero is my uncle. My uncle is a member of the Rockabilly Hall of Fame, and he taught me my first boogie woogie. And Uncle Bo, you ruined it. You know, like that was it. You know, like as soon as he taught me my first boogie woogie, man, my piano teacher, man, he hated, or she at that time, she hated him, because that's all I wanted to do. Yeah. You know, I didn't want to play any other music. I wanted to play boogie woogie and blues and Fats Domino and Jerry Lee Lewis. And, you know, those were these things that like just lit a fire underneath me and made me, you know, want to get out of bed, you know, and learn. And I wasn't a child of the internet, man. I would have went down that rabbit hole. If I'd had the internet, I would have saw every concert they ever had, all, you know, like done it all. All I had was just, you know, the songs, you know, that I could steal off the radio, where I'd go run and, you know, hit the record button, and I would wear those tapes out and break them and go back. And I mean, that was just it, man. That was that style just spoke to me.
So you said your uncle was in the Hall of Fame, but you said Bo.
Uncle, well, I call him, the world knows him as Cousin Bojack. He's a member of the Rockabilly Hall of Fame. I get to call him Uncle because I'm special.
Sure.
But I love me some Uncle Bo. But no, he was, man, I tell this story, but I'll tell it to you. If I was really good, I could get to go, and I got to go and have the pleasure of getting to go to a gig with him. And he, you know, they had a TV show on Saturday mornings, and then they would play a Friday night and a Saturday night gig. And, you know, I'd go with him to some VFW or some place. And I remember being, I was like 10, and we heard something on the radio, and, you know, he said, all right. And the next place, next time we passed by a Walmart or Fred's or whatever, he stopped, and we went right in. He got it. He popped it in to his tape player in the van. We listened to it all the way there. We walked right in. He never touched his guitar. He walked right in, told the boys, he said, this is the first song. He told them the chord changes, and he immediately hit it. And I went, this man is the greatest man on the planet. Right. You know? And now, I mean, I grew up, and, you know, I still think he's the greatest man on the planet. Yeah, you know, I mean, sure. He's just he was always good to his bandmates, and he taught me like to, you keep a band, you're gonna, don't take more than them. You pay your bandmates really good. You do what's right, because he was the band leader for his best friend, Eddie Bond. And Eddie Bond had a couple of little hits in the 50s and early 60s, enough to parlay into like getting this TV show and getting them, their name out. And, but he was the band leader for him all those years. And he taught me about being loyal and taught me about how to, take a group of guys and treat them. And I hope my bandmates will, confer that, we as a group, there is a leader, but, I always treat everyone fairly and how I'd want to be treated, because I've been on the other side of it as well.
Sure. So was you in band during high school?
Oh yeah. I was a band nerd.
Okay.
Steve Halfley was my band director, and he became my second, guy that hung the moon, I thought. And he was a hippie. He loved Kansas. And so we had a jazz band, but it really wasn't jazz band. It was 70s hits. And so we played like Blood, Sweat and Tears in Chicago. He was a trumpet player.
Gotcha.
And so growing, like I hit junior high and high school, that was what, that was the new influence. I went from rockabilly and, country.
So did you play keyboards?
I got to play keyboards in jazz band, and then I was a percussionist. And then so, I played all the different kind of drums during marching season. And then in concert season, it was a no-brainer. They put me over on mallets. And that's how I actually wound up in Alabama. Is I got a mallet scholarship to UNA.
Oh, wow.
And so I was decent enough to, to they were like, yeah, come play for us. And so I went to UNA, and that's how I got to Muscle Shoals. And because we lived, Hardin County, Tennessee is right on the state line. And at that time, UNA had a deal that if you were a county, if you shared a county, they waived out of state.
Oh, wow. Okay.
And so I thought I was going to UTM, University of Tennessee Martin. My best friend went to UTK, and I thought, well, I might be going there. And then they offered me that scholarship, and it was like it was okay. I'm headed to Muscle Shoals. I had no idea what that was going to mean for me. I was so clueless. I knew nothing about Muscle Shoals. Yeah. I knew nothing about what was about to happen. Oh my gosh. Yeah. Oh my gosh.
So what year? We're talking going from high school to what year did you graduate?
I graduated high school in '96.
Okay.
I hit Florence August of '96, and that first year was nothing but band. Dr. Jones was there, and he ran a tight ship. And if you were in band, that's all you did, man. I didn't do anything but eat, sleep, and drink marching band. Sure. And that was putting a dent into my college experience, because, we would go out the night before. We'd have to be on the, around in percussion at 8 o'clock in the morning after, partying all night. That was tough.
Hey, it builds discipline, man.
It did. It did.
It makes you stronger.
It did make me stronger, but I also knew there was another, there had to be another way.
Yeah.
And so I stayed with them for a year, and then I ended up, I changed and became a vocal major, so then I got to be in choir.
Okay.
And so that changed.
So if that was a scholarship, did they have a problem with you switching? Or
I didn't get a scholarship in choir.
Okay.
I gave it up.
Okay.
And I'm not at the time I didn't have a classical voice or anything until my voice teacher came and taught me. And I just changed. And in fact, I didn't even, I went and did a business for like 6 months or something. And then it just wasn't for me. Music was always what I wanted to study. Yeah. And so I ended up coming back into the music department, and I had to choose an ensemble. You had to do a performance ensemble. So I was like, I'll do choir, because I've done the band thing, and that commitment was too much. And I'd already by that point started playing in bands, and was like, no, I can't, I got to have my weekends.
Right.
Yeah, I cannot be, I can't be going to Dothan to the marching festival because I got to play, on Saturday night.
Yeah.
Because, that's important.
That's right. A lot more girls and stuff there too.
Well, yeah.
Maybe.
I mean, there was a whole busload of lionettes, but,
That's true. That's true.
But
how many bands were you? Well, I guess that'd be a open-ended question, but how prevalent, I guess a better way to put that is how prevalent was your band outside of band? I mean, did you start your own bands or did you just join people that already had their bands going through high school and college? Or?
Well, I started going to this bar called Grady T's, and it was 7,000 things, but it was Grady T's when I first started going there. And I found the greatest influence of my life, which was Iguana Party. That's Barry Billings is the guitar player. Joy Flippin played bass. Danny Kirsch played drums. We had a lady, Mary, who she did all this dance music, and they were like the most in my mind, and to a lot of people, I mean, there's lots of great bands there, but they were they got booked a lot. They were, and so they were booked close to the to where I could walk in walking distance, so I could drink all I wanted and then walk home. And I got to be, they would let me sit in. They were so nice. They really helped so many young guys. At the time, Barry was Jason Isbell's guitar teacher, and so Jason would come in from college and he'd sit in, or I'd come in and I'd sit in, or whoever, if they were, Gary Nichols wasn't playing, Gary Nichols would come in and sit in. Everybody in the world wants to play with Barry Billings, and Joy and Danny. That was, they were so welcoming, and not that the other bands weren't, but they had an open door policy that you knew that if they knew that you could pick a little, they wanted to foster, and tell you to come on up and jam with us. They had such a jam feeling. So I had done a couple of songs with them, and that kind of sparked me. I got to do I did this song with them. I just sang. They didn't have a piano player that night, so I just sang, and that led me into my first band, and then it led me into the second band, and then 3 or 4 years later, after I had played with all these other different bands, I just was in the right place in the right time, and the piano player for Iguana Party was let go, and Joy looked at me and said, "How close are you to, can you get your gear before the gig?" And I said, "I'm a block away." He said, "All right, go." And so I ran home because I had walked. Right. I ran home and I'm throwing my crap in the car because this was my, in my moment, in my little phenom, little brain, I was like, this is it. So I got to go in and I played with them that night. And it was for me, it was glorious. I know it was atrocious. The piano that I had didn't even have a transpose button, and those guys tuned down a half step. So they, if they looked like they were playing an E chord, they were really playing an E flat. So I couldn't look at his hands. I couldn't do anything. I had to sit there and transpose all night. And so I played a 3.5 hour, 4 hour gig with them that whole night, doing nothing but transposing, having to play the solos. All when I didn't get to play a whole lot. I wasn't that great, but that won me a next week. And so, and by God, I went into college debt, and I bought me a module that had a transpose button. I was like, I can't do that two weeks in a row. And so I ended up I played with them for 3 years or so, and I learned everything. Where Uncle Bo taught me how to be a man, and from the outside, as a kid watching him and giving that love, each one of those guys, Barry Billings, he pushed me, and Joy and Danny, all of them taught me, from everything from just how to wrap a chord up to how to be, how to play in a group. Joy owned Pegasus records at the time. Okay. And so, this is pre-internet. So their book was so huge. I could not, hold up. Sorry, somebody.
Oh yeah, no problem. No.
Time out.
So we're going to take a break.
Of joy,
we're going to take a break real quick, and we'll be right back.
If you like Cajun cuisine and want an experience like no other, try Tim's Cajun Kitchen on Norton Lane. Tim's Cajun Kitchen is one of the longest running restaurants in Huntsville, Alabama, and for good reason. I myself have been to Tim's Cajun Kitchen several times throughout the years, and not once have I gotten anything that was short of fantastic. What are you waiting for? Try Tim's Cajun Kitchen today.
There we go. We're ticking back. So... What I mean, ticking back, we got the clock going. So we left off at the Guam party, right?
Yeah, I'm sorry, my phone blew up. You say Joey Flippin's name 3 times, he's like Beetlejuice, and he calls. You know, and so Joey was actually calling me. Yeah. But no, I mean, so we started. I started playing with it, and they taught me everything. I mean. Danny Kirsch was like my best man at my wedding. I mean, we became family, and they all were just, pros in every sense. But their catalog was so big, and Joey owned the record store, and so now they all had their role in the band. Barry was like the father figure, and I was trying to always seek his approval, and he was always very stern with me, and I appreciate it to this day, because I mean he made me just go home and practice, and then Joy he was a little more tactful. He would be like, hey, come over to the record store. I've made you a CD of songs, basically songs you screwed up last week. and learn these songs. And so, he would bring, I'd go over there and he'd burn me off, some songs, and I would, I would go home and I'd learn those, and then I would, I'd be ready. But man, I played with them for like 4 years, and every night their book was so big. They played, if Mary wasn't up, Mary did all the dance music, and we did all like Tina Turner and Whitney Houston and, Etta James, all the girl dancey kind of things. And then all of a sudden we would, if she wasn't on the stage, a lot of times it would flip into Led Zeppelin and Rolling Stones and Allman Brothers, and they are who, Joy was this huge Allman Brothers fan, and he got me live, and then that's my favorite band. I mean, Allman Brothers is everything. Sure. Like, I learned how to play the B3 organ, but I was such a noob. I remember the first time Joy was like, hey, do you, I grew up in this country, Southern gospel-y kind of thing. Cause as a kid, we lived in this little bitty small town. And the church made the decision that I would be the piano player. And so by the time I was 11, I was playing piano at church every Sunday.
Let me ask you a question. Yeah. So there's a lot of good piano players, organ players that are very good. And then there's entertainers. When did you start bringing the entertainment into it? And what I mean is, as you well know, as everybody knows, listening to somebody play and then watching somebody play is a total different experience. And that's I think you've hit the entertainment level, which really brings the audience in, obviously. Right. And it's, I think, a great character of yours that you've done that. Was that something that was done at an early age, or when did you start noticing you started picking that up?
That's Jerry Lee Lewis.
Okay.
Jerry Lewis is, he's the greatest entertainer. Sure. The greatest story of his is, he has the #1 record on, in the world, but he had to open up for Chuck Berry, and he, burns the piano and walks out and he says,
there you go.
There you go. Go get him, killer.
Right.
And so, his whole persona becomes, this guy who would do anything up there. I mean, he could play. The man could play, but he could also use his feet and, go behind his head. And, and in those days, I've tried to pattern myself a lot after him. I would, I remember there was a show we did, and I got on the floor, and I'm still playing and kicking my legs, and Danny Kirsch is hitting cymbals on where my legs are kicking. And we had that whole thing. But Fats Domino, he's a totally different guy. Dr. John, he is this man who has his own persona, and he's such an entertainer. And so I love Derek Trucks. Derek Trucks is the greatest slide guitar player, and y'all can crucify me later in the comments, but Dwayne did all he did in like a 4 to 5 year window. Mm-hmm. Derek Trucks is my age and has been playing professionally since he was 12. He's done it so much longer. I mean, and y'all can, the people can just rail on me all you want, but I mean, Dwayne is, he's the founder of this is what we do in blues rock with slide guitar. Derek is, this is now what we do, and I played this, and I have another gear, but his entertainment is, if he didn't have his wife, that would be a kind of not the most fantastic show, because he sits there and he plays. That doesn't speak to me. I think an entertainer is actually, an entertainer, that you pay your money, you want, we can all play, and, you can go to Nashville, man, and your waitress and your waiter can outplay you. I mean, talent is all over. Yeah. Can they translate what they know to get the crowd to go with them? Yeah. And so that's what I try to do every time that I get out, and it's a hell of a lot cheaper than therapy.
Well, you don't even seem like, I guess it'd be kind of like an act, okay, well, I have to do this to get to you. My personal opinion, watching you, I feel you're into it, and it just comes out while you're playing. Now, you can call it entertainment, and you can call it, hey, you have to do that to get the audience engaged. It seems like it's just natural for you to, I don't care what anybody's looking at, I'm going to do me. And that's the entertainment part.
Man, I really do appreciate that. The reality is, even if I'm in the recording studio and there's no cameras and no people, I'm still animated, because the music is inside me, and it's got to come out. Yeah. And I only know one way for it to come out. I have one gear, and it is full on. If I try to bring it back, everything just loses itself. And so, I feel it like no one. And what's hilarious is people talk about, the number one comment that they come up to me, they'll use, they're polite. They say, "You're the most passionate performer I've ever seen." And I'll take it, because the reality is they can see that I'm having the best time. I don't care if you pay me money. I like money, but I'm not going up there to do that. Like I said, it is cheaper than therapy. I let everything out. And my piano techs love that, because I beat the hell out of those pianos, and they're constantly being sent. One of the reasons why I have so many is that, I'll kill a key, and it has to go to the shop and then come back, because there's only one way I know how to do it. And that's it's 100%.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's awesome, man. So what do you do on your downtime? So, I would imagine your downtime is playing, but there has to be something else that, everybody needs a break from something. So, do you put puzzles together? No. Build model cars? What do you do on your downtime?
Well, I don't have a whole lot of downtime. When I was, the other piece of my musical puzzle was when I went to UNA. My voice teacher, she saw something in me, and she owned a music school. And she said, "Hey, would you come and teach?" And I said, okay. But we found out really quickly that I had a lot of musicians, they don't have the business gene. That's, they don't have an ideal for marketing, or ideal of like getting up in the morning and answering their phones and, doing some of the business stuff. Well, we found out early on that I kind of was drawn to that, and I was starting to help out in the office when I didn't have a lesson. And within about 6 months later, I was the studio manager there. And so I started teaching music lessons. And then once I graduated, I started my first music school. And everywhere that I moved to, I'd start one, build it, sell it, move it on, and go on, to the point where I parlayed that about 10 years ago into a big music school that I sold, and I started doing consulting across the country to different music schools where I would go and help them, kind of like bar rescue.
Get it together.
And I would go in and I'd help
them. You guys
them.
are failing. Let me show you what to do.
100%. And so, I enjoy that side, and that's life-giving. I love to build websites for people. That's my geeky thing. I love to like do the websites for a lot of my buddies. I'll build them, and I enjoy that. But if I had when my son lived at home, we did what was called Movie World. We would go and spend all day at the movies to eat popcorn and just hang out, so we enjoyed that.
That's what me and my dad did. Yeah.
Dude, it was, that we didn't have a whole lot. Me and Eli didn't have a whole lot in common. He's a great musician. And he always was at my music schools, but he would never let me teach him. And so, imagine that,
that's normal.
Oh, for real. And so he had great teachers. I always made sure that he had great teachers, and he is, he is a killer bass player. But
matter of fact, when I saw you, I didn't actually get to meet him, but he played that night, that first night I saw you.
Yeah, he came in. He is a theater major in college, and he had came from practice. And Danny and Joy was playing with me that night from Iguana Party, and I said, "Come on, they really want you to meet." And so they came in and they sat in. He sat in and he played with us, and it was so hilarious. He got the ultimate compliment that night, because Joy, who is, as solid of a bass player that I've ever worked with. Anybody would say that in muzzle shows. He told me afterwards, he goes, "Eli is the most technically sound bass player I've ever seen live, and I didn't want to go back on stage." He's good, but we didn't have, in our musical interests were not really aligned. Sure. Because father son kind of thing. But he we've joined, we started this band, and I put him in there, and it's, that's an adventure in itself. But it's so funny. A lot of people, they come, they're like, "Oh, we're coming for Otis," but they leave talking about Eli. He's that boy can play. Yeah.
You could tell he had talent for sure. And, when you see somebody that young coming up on stage, just like with the Alabama Heathens, those guys look pretty young. And then you're like, what are we going to get here? And then you hear them, you're like, holy crap, man. Yeah, these guys must have been playing in their crib or something. What is going on here?
Eli and Jude are really good friends. Yeah. They play in college together. And in fact, a lot of times if my guitar player is out of town, I get Jude to come in, and they are so happy to get to play with each other. They're the few, I'll say it all the time from the stage, those young guys are that next generation. Absolutely. They are the future of what we're gonna see in 10 years. They're good right now, but they're gonna be dangerous in a decade.
I agree. And matter of fact, every time I go see them, whether it's a month apart, I'm telling you, I'm not just talking these guys up, because I don't do that. Mm-hmm. But every time I go, it seems like they've stepped their game up each time I go see them.
Just since I've hired Jude, his slide, and I told him this the other night, he played with me at my blues jam, his slide playing is just night and day in just 6 months. He's it's so excited, I've come full circle in that respect, that I was the snot-nosed 20-year-old kid that got an opportunity with Iguana Party, and now turn around, Eli plays in my band, and a lot of times, Jude comes in and he sets in, and I sit back and I look at it, life has changed. I'm now the old guy because I'm the age at what Iguana Party was when they gave me a chance. Sure. And I will never, I can't, state it how much they changed me, that, if I get a little part in something with those boys, that's golden, so that would be my hobby, I guess.
Yeah. So coming out of college, it sounds like that's been your part-time gig, is music schools and going. Has there ever been any kind of jobs that you've had other?
And other than COVID, when COVID hit, no one wanted a music lesson and no one could gig. And it was the only time in my adult life I've ever had a gig that wasn't tied into music. So I worked at MAPCO. Okay. I worked night shift at MAPCO and sold people. I had the greatest privilege to get to be on New Year's Eve night, the night that they changed the smoking law, where, in Alabama, it went from you could buy cigarettes at 19. Well, then they changed the federal law that you had to be 21. And I got to be the person that told all those drunk kids that came in that night they couldn't buy cigarettes. And like,
that went over good.
Oh my God. Yay me, And so but that's the only like non-music gig that I have ever had. I've either, played, been a worship leader at a church. Danny Kirsch reminded me of this the other day. I wanted to be a composition major, and the closest thing they had at UNA was called sacred music. And so the little church that I was working at the time, they misspelled. They had a typo in the bulletin and said that I majored in scared music.
Scared music.
Yes. Yeah. So maybe that's maybe that was foretelling, that I scare people with my music.
So what brought you from college coming to the Huntsville area? What got you interested in coming here?
I went to, I took a church in Tampa, Florida, and I went to Tampa, Florida, and I was married to an Alabama girl. And you can take Alabama from the girl, but you cannot take the girl from Alabama. And she was miserable in Tampa. Tampa's a great place, fun place, love the weather. Found this little place outside of there called Tarpon Springs, and they have this big Greek influence. And and they have a state park there that has a beach, and that's where the locals go to do their beach. They let all the college kids and crazies go to Clearwater, but they go to Tarpon Springs. And I wanted to go retire there, when it was all said and done. But
even during the summer.
Well, in Florida, you find out if you're a local, you let all those crazy people do it during the summer, and then you can go hang out on the beach in January, when there's nobody.
You stay inside,
yes.
June through what, September?
Yes, man, it's hot. It is super duper hot, but no.
So that's what brought you up to Alabama?
Yeah, I took a church in Huntsville for the first time, and then I ended up partnering with a friend from college after that. Gig died, and we started a music I came in and started helping him with his music school. I was teaching there first, and then we ended up becoming co-owners. And then I went and took another job in East Tennessee. And when that went south, there was, my marriage was about to go south as well, and so I knew that coming back to Alabama was the right place. And Huntsville was, in my mind, the best place to be, because Huntsville was, it wasn't nearly as big. This was, Eli's 20. He was in first grade at the time, and so we moved back when he was in first grade. And we never left. Yeah. And it's a great place to live. If you're a musician, it's even better, because like if I want a gig to go to Nashville, I'm an hour and a half, or I can go gig in Atlanta and I'm 3 hours away, So yeah. The only big the downside is, Memphis is 4 hours away, and Clarksdale is 4.5, so that's a little far to get to do on a normal a normal day. But I can't imagine being more centrally located as a musician as living in Huntsville. Yeah. And the music scene here has grown a lot,
Absolutely.
Over the time. So it's
especially in the last
good.
5 years.
Yeah. It has and it hasn't.
You're right. It's always been there. But now that there's building all these different venues for like these high profile people, I think it's putting a lot more focus on the local talent, which has always been there. but now it's more highlighted, I think.
It is, but if you're in a band, there's not a whole lot of places that you get to play as a band right now. There, and I get it. It's and I'm part of the problem as well, because I do a lot of solo work, because they'll throw you a little bit more money if you'll go play solo, because for the venues they can pay a little bit more money for one guy, but not as much as what they'd pay for as a band.
Yep.
And we really don't have a whole lot of places that the bands get to play. If that was my one, gripe, of Huntsville, we got to go travel a little bit if you're going to stay, if you're going to stay busy. You gotta kind of have to move out, which is fine with me. We want to build a following, and Huntsville will always be our base, but it's time to move out.
Sure. Yep. Gotcha. Hey, we're going to take a break real quick, and we'll be right back.
Pick up Bud's book, Sidetracks Music Hall, which documents the remarkable journey of a local music venue. It's about time we had a chat. You need to step your game up. Whether it's promotional band pictures or epic profile pictures, Bud Gambrill is the guy you want. First impressions are the everlasting impression. Make your first impression incredible with Bud Gambrill's photography services.
Dude, Mark and Poe.
I'm not sure who that is.
They're a girl group out of Nashville.
Okay.
And one sister plays a strat and is mean and can sing. The other girl sings harmony, and then she plays a lap steel standing up.
Okay.
And I walked away. Everybody, like from the comments ever, everybody walked away and said, "Damn, Larkin Poe is the band."
Yeah.
They just killed it.
So they got stuff online that you can go see?
They do. But their same thing. I went and looked at them before, and their live doesn't translate to what they've got in the album. So, but that was the problem with the Allman Brothers until they hit Fillmore. No one, was like, it's all right. But then they got that Fillmore album out, and everybody's like, holy shit, this band can
Where'd they
play.
come from?
Yeah, for real. I mean, like that was it.
Yeah.
So, it is what it is.
As you can tell, we're back now. We got to take a little breaks here. I'm old, so got to do stuff. So one of the things I want to ask you, now that you are here in Huntsville, well, your base is here in Huntsville, and we don't have to be Huntsville specific, but I'm kind of wondering, where's kind of like the best venues you've played, and where are kind of the worst? I mean, is it both of those in one place, or can you name places around the country where the best and worst were?
Oh my gosh. Well, I mean, my favorite place that we play, and it's not against anybody, I got two right now, for two totally different reasons. Stovehouse. When you go into Stovehouse, you get a professional sound guy. The crowd is they're there. The load in is easy. It's a good environment to do more of a concert, which is more what we end up doing a lot of times. Is I don't like to take a whole lot of breaks. We play with a lot of energy. We don't do a shit ton of slow songs. I mean, we're just straight at you, and that crowd seems to be energized each song that we do. They want another one. But I mean, I play. I enjoy a lot of the different places here. The worst one that I've ever played in is not here in town. It was in St. Joe's, Tennessee, outside of Florence.
Okay.
And I don't even remember what the name of that bar was, but it was one of these crazy bars where, like, I literally went to the bathroom and a dude was doing a line of coke on the urinal, and I've like, for real. And then there was
they have chicken wire in front of the station?
There was no chicken wire. That's in West Memphis. That's an Arkansas thing, and I have played behind chicken wire. But the night that we played in St. Joe's, I played in this band. This was before Iguana Party. I played in this band called Sharpshooter. And talented. We had three youngins in that group, and they were we all were up and comers, and then we had two older guys that rounded off the group, and we played a variety of country and classic rock. But that night, the bouncer was having to fight this kid named I don't remember what his name was, but the bouncer, who was about 700 pounds and 6 foot tall, his name was Pee Wee, which was hilarious.
Right.
And he beat the hell out of this dude and threw him right next to my guitar player's amp. And my guitar player was we were having to hold the guitar player. We're never coming back, you know. And I don't know if that bar is still around, but man, it was rough. Like out of all of the bars, like there's sometimes you go play a place and you're like, I'm never playing that place.
Well, maybe
again.
it was just a bad night. Maybe it's
I don't know, man. It was rough. But
so with that said, where's some of the places that you want to play that you haven't played yet?
My bucket list is BB King's Bar and Grill back on Bill, and I want to go play in Clarksdale. I want to play in Morgan Freeman's place, the Ground Zero juke joint down there. That is my bucket list. I don't care if I ever get to play big and be big or famous or whatnot, but I want to go play there. Those are fun. I got the opportunity last summer in Las Vegas. I went to oh gosh, there's a big blues festival there, and called the Blues Bender, and so it was so much fun. Me and Frog, my girlfriend, we went, and the lineup is sick. I mean, killer blues rock guys. But during the day they have like a jam for the people who've paid to come, and so I did not want to go, and so we went, and Frog pushed me to go, and so I went and played, and the guy was like, you can't play, you can't do that one again. Come back tonight after the event in the casino. They do a pro-am, and he was like, I'll put you up with the big guys, and so I got to go play with them, and it was like, dude, that in the incarnation of Otis Walker, that was the best night to get to go play, because I got to play with some real like big old dudes and just had the best time.
Well, speaking of that, being in the Muscle Shoals area during college and everything, I'm sure you played with a lot of big people. So I hate to ask you to name drop, but I want you to name drop some of the people that you've played with that have been around, even in the Huntsville area. I know you've played with some pretty big guys here too.
So let's see, of course, getting the Iguana Party gig at my age was great, because there were lots of times where people would come into town and we got to play with them and do different things. Pete Carr came in one night over, and we played for that was the loudest gig I have ever played. That dude was that guitar. We did all of the Main Street. It was like an anniversary of when Main Street had been Bob Seger's, and that was crazy loud. This guy named Blind Mississippi Morris, who was he was a juke joint legend at that time. He came in for Handy Festival, and we struck up a friendship that week, and I got to set in with him the entire time. After Iguana Party we get done, I'd go to his gig, and I got to go hang out with him. I played so much with Iguana Party, I didn't have a whole lot of time, and at the time, like I said, I am such a different piano player now. I grew into myself, kind of thing. I guess the biggest gig that I ever played at that time, NC was out of town. NC Thurman, and he played with the Decoys, and so he was going to a family wedding, and they had been hired to do this Muscle Shoals singer-songwriter guy, and we played on an opening stage in Birmingham for Kid Rock. So it was like you walk in and we're playing, we're the first band you kind of see that night, and so we went in. I remember that night, like I had played with Iguana Party, and I still was nervous with them, but then I'm in Kelvin Holly's house, and there's Kelvin, and there's the Swamper right over there, Mr. Hood playing bass, and the whole group is stellar, stellar. And I made it through about 10 minutes of the first song, and Kelvin Holly walked over to me and tapped me on the shoulder, and he was like, I know you can play better than this. He was like, you gotta settle down.
Yeah.
And so we took a break, and I settled down, and and I've never been a great practicer. I'm, game time, when it comes down, I start to perform, and that night, all to a man, they all were like, keep it up, you're going to do good. And so, that was probably the biggest, because at that time, he was the guitar player for Little Richard, he's just, Mr. Hood is, he's Mr. Hood.
Right, right.
He's as good as it gets, right?
You don't talk about it.
Oh God, no.
You're right. Yes, I do.
Yes. he's as good as it comes, and so getting to play, that gig, we went backstage, we were in, we had catering with Kid Rock, at that time, Kid Rock was like, he was as hot as he could be. Oh my God, he was amazing. So that was probably like the biggest, at that time, that was one of the biggest things that I had ever got to do. I've played, I've went we've got guys over at the King Biscuit Blues Festival, and I've been the hype man for a few different people, and played the first two songs, and then welcome out the guy, and then I'll sit back and just comp, and stuff, but I'm not, I've been blessed, and I've enjoyed what I've done, but I think what's hilarious is in this last year, coming back out, not out of retirement, but I spent I've spent about 5 or 6 years as a single dad, and I didn't gig during that time.
Okay.
I wanted to make sure that Eli, I got Eli graduated, and there is no I'm throwing no shade on anybody else, but when I became a dad, I looked at him, and my whole world shifted and changed, and I love music, but I loved him as well, and
Sure.
and I didn't want to I didn't want to miss anything, and so I made sure that but once he graduated and he was out.
It's game on.
It was game on. And so
Right.
I told him, I said, I'm going to start this band, and wherever it takes me, I'm going, because, I've done, I've raised you, and I feel like I've raised him great. He's a good kid. He's a really good kid. And, but now it's a little, not being selfish, but it's just, it's my time, to get to play. And just in the last 7 days, I have played. Mike Roberts came to my blues jam, and we traded fours. I went to Muscle Shoals. Barry Billings came and sat in with us all night, and I traded fours with him. I get to play with Donnie Cox every week, and he's, I'd put him up against anybody. People are starting to call me, just out of the blue, I played with the Alabama Heathens, and that ended up just was a magical.
It was phenomenal. We were there. We were there for that.
We just hit, and I get to play with so many different people.
What's so weird about that is, and I don't mean this in a bad way whatsoever, you were the last person I would have expected to see there. Because we walked in, and when I first walked in there, we're listening to them. I'm like, yeah, they sound pretty good. And then I hear something in the background, and I'm like, I look back there, I'm like, I think that's Otis. And he's like, Otis who? I'm like, Otis Walker. He's like, Otis Walker is back there? I'm like, that's Otis Walker. And then you kind of went on your own there. I forget what song it was, but you were singing it.
I did whip and post with him.
Yeah. I was like, man.
Well,
I was like, they're going to try to get you in there with him.
Well, anytime that I'm not working, I love those guys.
Well, that's a good segue of what I want to talk about now is what you're doing now. I know you have some original songs, and I'm not sure. Well, let's just pull it out here. And no matter what anybody says, this is the very first copy.
It is.
No matter what Frog says, this is the very first copy of your new album.
That is. Man, so we went to Jeremy Stevens in Decatur, and we recorded. And I don't know if you've read he wrote this epic, like almost Edgar Allan Poe poem or synopsis of what happened, because I had went in a couple of weeks before and said, "Are you the right guy?" And we talked, and we found out that his whole lineage is Allman Brothers. Like he worked for Mr. Sandlin, and so he became Mr. Sandlin's right hand man. Mr. Sandlin was the big producer for the Allman Brothers. In fact, some of the equipment that he has is direct from, he'll walk around and go, "Oh yeah, Chuck Leavell tuned that Wurlitzer," or, that organ Greg Allman played, or, we used the tambourine that was used in Jessica, I'm looking at it like, it's, that's my,
Sure.
that's my stuff. But we had talked, he had never heard me. And we, till he punched the tape and the tape started rolling. And he was, you can go, it's on the top of my feed in Facebook. He was blown away that night of what we did, and like how, like it was, the kind of music that he grew up in and he loved. And it's Southern, it's hilarious, because some people will say that I'm Memphis as AF, and then you get some people, the other day, Taylor Burden from, the Silver Silos, he got a chance to get to listen to it, and he was, he messaged Jeremy, and he was like, "He's Muscle Shoals as AF," but I'm we say that we're the musical gumbo of goodness. Otis Walker is the musical gumbo of goodness, so we blend all these kind of things together. So this album, they're all originals. They have a direct theme of sex and drugs and
all the good stuff.
All the good stuff. It is very much Southern music. Whether it is Southern soul, Southern rock. You've got this, and the guys who played, like my band played in it, and they were there. But we brought in one of my good friends who's a bass player who plays in a band that's up and coming in Birmingham called Love Rat. He played a couple of the bass tracks in it. And then, Eli played all the funky stuff. Jim Beck is an amazing saxophone player. I don't know if you ever, he plays, in town you would see him with the Eric Rhodes Band, but he plays all over. He played a couple of tracks. Scott Todd, who is one of the great Muscle Shoals slide guitar players, he came in for a day. We had
so Scott Todd's a very famous session player, right?
He is a very famous session player. He also has a gig where he plays all around the world with a Christian artist named Lenny LeBlanc.
Okay.
They will go to Africa. They'll go everywhere. Of course, Lenny was a big time Muscle Shoals songwriter, and then he went into contemporary Christian music, and he co-wrote probably the biggest song of the 90s, and which has opened him and Scott doors all over the world, in fact, when I called him, most of the time when I call him, we're good friends, he'll be like, I'm either in a recording studio or I'm, I'm in a country that you never have heard of,
Right.
And so he was able to come in, and man, he just kills these slide tracks that are just absolute killer tracks. He turned me on to a lady to come in. He was like, "This girl, you need her to come in and do backgrounds." And I'd never heard of her. Jeremy had never heard of her. We set her down, and within maybe the second track, we both were looking at each other that day like, this is not your normal play. And then when in a break we were talking, we're like, "What do you do?" And she was like, "Well, I go to Nashville, I go to Muscle Shoals, I'm a session player, and then I'm also the background singer for Alabama." Right. All right then,
Yeah.
But I've never seen anybody go into the studio. She would hear it one time, she'd take her little vocal sheet in there, she'd go into the booth, and then she would nail it the very first time, and then she'd be like, you want me to stack it? And then she could do it again. I mean, we spent 3 or 4 hours with her and knocked out 10 songs and was like, just like, I've never seen anything like, so, I mean, the playing on this album is, I mean, we just got some ringers that came in. Songs are, I wrote them. I mean, they're good to me, but I mean, the people that have come in, they were so excited to get to play on it, so excited to hear what is going to happen with it. So, well, I mean, it may only, 10 people may hear it. I'm expecting you to listen to it since you got the first copy.
You better believe it. Matter of fact, the cover's going to go on the wall, but the actual CD in there is going in my truck. So,
well, there you go.
Is this available for people to get now, or
not yet?
So this is probably going to be coming out, I don't know, 2 or 3 weeks or so. Is it going to be available when this comes out?
We're going to start releasing songs. In fact, I'm going back in. I'm doing a little Christmas 45 album right now. I wrote a Christmas song, and then we did in July, we cut an old blues song, Santa Claus Wants Some Lovin', an old Albert King song. Yeah. And all my life, I wanted a 45, man. I'm old, Sure. I want that record, with my little name on it and put it on the wall and stuff. So, I mean, no one else is going to do it, so I paid for it. Yeah. And so we're doing that. That's going to drop, the night that we've got vinyl coming out. It's going to drop.
That's what I want to talk about too.
It's going to drop on Black Friday, but we are going to start releasing a little bit at a time. In fact, I'm going back to do final vocals for the Christmas thing, and me and Jeremy are going to talk Sunday about which ones are going to start being sprinkled out there. And then if you come to a gig, you're going to be able to buy one of these before then. We're not going to put it on we're not going to put it out other than like I said, we'll release a single here, but you won't be able to get it unless you come to the gig. It won't be on our website until Black Friday.
Okay. So when it does come out, what do you have a website, Facebook? It's going to be on all platforms. If so, where are these located at?
We're on all platforms right now. We have a couple of covers and one of my originals on anywhere that you can stream. You can go to otiswalkerband.com. and you can find out where we're going to be next. We got our calendar, and then we'll have we're building our store right now. We've already have some merch that you can buy, but you are going to be able to get. It will go for sale for the CD. Obviously, you'll be able to buy the singles when we release them from there, but you'll buy this. You can come to a show, and so that's incentive for you to come to a show before the 29th. But on the 29th, we have the coolest thing. I'm super excited.
Me too.
About.
I want you to talk about it.
All right, so we're dropping our vinyl that night, and the Electric Belle at Stovehouse has been kind enough to give us free reign. And so when I knew what was going to happen, my favorite band in town when I am not playing is 5 O'Clock Charlie. I mean, that's my go-to. Yep. We're very similar. We're cut from the same cloth. I love country. I love Southern rock. They do, in my opinion, they do that the best of anybody in town. And Mike and Dwayne, they're all the guys. Billy, all of them are just great guys.
Can't forget Michael Klein.
I don't know, I've shook his hand like twice, but I know Billy very, very well.
I swear. Listen, I'm not going to do it again.
Yeah.
I'm not going to do the Klein thing again. Everybody that's watched this podcast know what I'm talking about. So I'm not going to do it again, but yes, we love some Michael Klein.
We just, what's hilarious is when every time I get to a gig, me and Dwayne have become, we could, Frog says we have a little bromance.
Dwayne's easy to get a bromance with. He's a really good dude, man.
We just sat and talked, and Mike is he's the biggest sweetheart.
Absolutely.
And he's the nicest human being I think I've ever met.
I think you're probably right.
And we have a great talk, and what's funny, we both talk about our kids, that's kind of our thing. But so when I was I knew this was going to happen. I called him. I said, hey, why don't you guys, can you guys be the headliner? We'll open up for you. We'll take this night. This is my, it's my album release, but you guys, you're 5 o'clock Charlie. And Mike was like, absolutely not. He was like, we're going to open up for you. It's your night, and I said, all right, well, fine, but you can't leave, because what I want to do, there's two things that is going to happen.
Well, we can't tell secrets, can we?
Oh, I'll tell this one.
Okay.
I'll tell this one. At the end of the night, we are going to have a huge jam with both bands on stage. So I'm talking double drummers. We're going to do the whole like Allman Brothers kind of, dude, it's going to be great.
When do tickets go on sale for this?
To be determined in the next week or two. So,
but when it does, I guess they can go to Otis Walker.
They'll be able to go to Otis, or they'll
band.com.
go to Electric Belle as well.
Electric Belle.
And so
link is down in the description.
that we'll definitely get that out as soon as possible. We're super excited. One of the tracks on our album,
Man, I'm excited.
is a song that I wrote for my son. And so it's called Could You Do This For Me? And it is about a father's love for their boy. And we had already discussed the ideal that I wanted to do, even though we have the two bands and stuff, I wanted to do something with just Mike and Jude and me and Eli, and we'd get one of the drummers, to come up there. And we have this father-son thing. And so we got to, shoot in ideals and whatnot. And Eli was like, well, I mean, you should just sing a verse and Mike should sing a verse. And I mean, the songs is, talking about this father's love. And then it also talks about whiskey. So here in a minute, we should listen to it and then you'll catch it. But it is, for me, and it's always this very emotional part in our show, because like Frog, she always tears up. And if I don't look at it, if I look over at Eli singing harmonies and, and this song is very personal about him. If I don't watch out, I get in my feelings as well. That night will be the handkerchief, song with all of us, because we're so proud. Like I said, when me and Mike talk, we end up talking about our boys, because they're so good friends, and it's so much fun that seeing them like be in this, next generation. And we always kind of laugh like they're not in a band together, but 20 years from now they'll probably be in a band together, and like they're just, they have such great chemistry together. So it's always fun. So that may be the highlight of the night, with me and Mike up there singing a duet. So it would be worth the price of admission.
Oh,
I'll
absolutely.
tell you that.
I bet.
Plus the jam.
Well, yeah, sure. Yeah. So I know you got some side projects going on also, right?
Yeah. So about, I guess 6 or 7 months ago, I got a phone call from Hal Sledge.
Oh, wow.
So that is...
That name sounds familiar.
Well, his dad is Percy Sledge.
Well, there you go.
And so Hal calls me and he's like, I hear you play a really good organ. He's like, I'm looking for an organ player. And he was like, do you know my father? And I was like, yeah. I know who Percy Sledge is,
Sure.
which is hilarious. So like my dad, his favorite song was When a Man Loves a Woman. And I can go back in my brain and I can see my parents dancing in our kitchen, for it. And the last thing before my dad passed away, I got him tickets to see Percy Sledge at Handy Festival. And so there was the last concert my dad ever got to see. And so it was always very special. And so when Hal called me and said, would you be willing to come and play, with me? The answer was, not if. I was like, okay, when are we gonna go do this? And so it's hilarious, when I start, the organ starts When a Man Loves a Woman, so I hit it off, and he starts to tell his story of when the first time he ever heard his family got to hear this song come on the radio. He was just a little bitty. That's his first memory. And one of my first memories is to see, like, I can picture seeing my parents dance to this song. But then like one of the most special memories is sitting in concert with my dad after he had had a major heart attack and he survived, but then he got a little better, but I got him these tickets. And so we took him to see this concert, and then he lasted, that was July, August, always that year. And then he died the Monday after Thanksgiving. We started talking about serendipity. I'm bringing out my first album, on Black Friday, which was the last time I ever saw my dad was on Thanksgiving. And so, it's always a special time of the year for me. But when I crank into that, that iconic song and Hal is always talking, he's thinking about his dad. I'm always in the back thinking about my dad as well. And so, we've talked about it. And it's so hilarious how after the second after the second show, he was like, "We are family now." He calls me cuz, so that I'm not Otis to him, I'm cuz. And getting to play with Hal is hilarious because as soon it never happens with me. As soon as we crank up that first big iconic organ, every phone in the house comes out. Every phone. I never get that, but every phone, because everybody knows it's going to be something special. Because it's still one of the most played songs on Spotify.
Man, what a great story!
It is crazy. And so what was hilarious, I'm really good friends with this guy named Johnny G, who is the bass player for Indiana, John Mellencamp. He's the best. He's the bass player. He's been the bass player for John Mellencamp for years, and I'm really good friends with him. And we had just had a conversation a couple of weeks ago about me, maybe joining a band or me, doing something, going out on the road. And I said, I don't have any confidence. I don't have anything like that. And Johnny G said, Otis, you tell them the next time exactly what I told John Mellencamp. And John Mellencamp called him and he said, I'll be the best decision you ever make. Yeah. And so Hal calls me and Johnny G's in the back of my back of my brain. I said, Hal, if you pick me, I'll be the best decision you ever make. So when we get done with every gig, he tells everybody that story.
This is the best decision I ever made. Here he is, Otis Walker.
And because so Hal, if you're watching this, I love you, man. It is an honor to get to play with you, man. Every time we do it is good stuff. It's good stuff. So
to wrap it up here, where can people go? We already talked about OtisWalkerBand.com, and then go to Facebook. Is it your personal website or is there Otis Walker Band?
I have an Otis Walker channel, and then I have an Otis Walker Band channel as well.
Okay, and where can we get the merch? Is that on the?
That's on OtisWalkerBand.com.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
Anything else you want to talk about before we head off here?
How are you?
I'm great, man. Nobody asked me how I'm doing.
I know, all right. So I'll flip. All right. So you saw me over. It was going to be a one-off over at St. Stephen's with Joey Flippin and Danny Kirsch, and we named ourselves Otis Walker and the Muscle Shoals Mafia. And you came in. I'm curious because I get this all the time. And it's so funny. They'll always say, you sound like blank, and it's always somebody different. Who do you think that Otis Walker sounds like? Because the gumbo of goodness, I get multitudes of different things.
Man, well, I can answer this if you don't want to.
By all means, go right ahead.
That's one of the things I look for in artists that I get excited about is, we already have a X, Y, and Z.
We already have a Chuck Berry. We already have an Allman Brothers.
Right? Mm-hmm. And the reason, and I'll state it here, that you're probably my favorite vocalist in Huntsville is because I can't really pinpoint you. And I'm all about the fast stuff. I'm in that genre. I get it. But for me, when I saw you live, it was just, this is different.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? This is something else. And, that's what I got to say about that.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, to rack my brain to put you in a category or a sound like person, man, I can't do it. And that's what, I don't want to sound too corny here, but that's what drew me to you and the band. The first song that you did, I'm like, man, they're pretty good. But then, it came out and I'm like, who is this guy? I mean, and that's what amazes me. We're focused on you right now, but I'm going to focus on the talent here in Huntsville. Mm-hmm. There's been so many people that has just surprised the crap out of me. You being absolutely one of them is, I'll be honest with you, I didn't even know anything about you. And I'm so glad I was there that night because I would have never known. And that just makes me want to do this podcast more. Right. I've had somebody I had on previously that came up to me this last weekend and he was like, hey man, I've gotten this since that podcast, and there's times when you're doing this podcast, you're like, am I helping anybody? Cause it was never an effort to promote me and everything that we're doing. It was always, the focus was who we're having to build them up, to help them get pushed out, or just to tell a story that they had that nobody would ever hear. And that was been the focus of the podcast. And I'm so glad I got to meet you. And I hope that anybody that watches you is going to be amazed, so that's not the part. The part is getting the promotion out there to tell everybody, say, hey, come see this guy because, it's going to be unique. It's going to be entertaining. And it's going to be something that's going to get you excited. So I hope that we do that for you on this podcast.
Man, I appreciate it. I appreciate what you're doing for all of us. I mean, being a musician is hard. When you're in a bigger town, it's even harder. I mean, there's only so many venues and, we all have to kind of split and share time. And a lot of times in those rotations, especially as venues fold and things, things happen, beyond our control, there's less and less opportunity. So I hate to be, all press is good press, sure. But the reality is you're shining a light in a kind of a voidless area because we don't get a whole lot of attention. And I'm not banging Huntsville, but Huntsville has got to the point where we're so excited about the big guys that are coming in. But I'm going to tell you, there's some young up and coming songwriters here in town that they could be that next big traveling act. And so you're all excited that they're coming in, but you should, go check some of these venues out. We got to support the local venues or they're not going to be here.
Yep. Well, with that said, I have brought up to other people about why isn't there these big acts that are coming in town? Why don't we have local people going up there being open and stuff like that? And I've been taught the whole business side behind of it. And listen, I get it, but hopefully one day I'll have enough influence where I can go to these guys and say, I'm like, listen, this guy, you have to have at least for 10, 15 minutes, even if it's just to be able to get it out there. I mean, that's all it takes. It's just a little bit of exposure to show somebody's talent, and they're going to be like, "Where in the hell has this guy been?" And it's going to just shoot 100%. To the moon.
And I could name you probably 5 or 6 guys or gals that are here in this town,
absolutely,
that they could do that today
absolutely.
With no,
I agree.
We have a lot. I mean, we have a lot of talent.
There's an abundance of talent
but
here.
We do not. The press is not kind. So I'm super excited, that there is something here. And, I love me a podcast. So, this is, right. This is good stuff for me. Whoever's on it, I get to learn. The best part about country music is the stories. Mm-hmm. And that's the best part of any song to me. Yep. A lot of people are like, oh, I want the beat. I want the story. I want to find out why somebody ticks, how they tick. So thank you for bringing that out.
Yeah, man. I appreciate it. We're going to cut off here, man. If you're good with that.
Yep.
We're going to do some other stuff before we leave.
Yes.
We're going to get some B-roll stuff.
Yep.
And Tracer, you got anything?
Nope.
All right. We're out of here. Right. Thank you guys for watching. And Otis Walker, you've got to go watch this guy and his band. Incredible. So aside from that, November 29th,
Black Friday.
Black Friday. There we go. If you're not there, then you're just, I'm not going to say bad words. But anyway, we're going to cut off here. Thanks for watching, guys. We'll see you.
All right.